I've been sitting with this feeling here for a little bit. Um, I just figured I'd kind of record it, whether for myself or for, I don't know, anybody else who's like on a, I guess, a journey to self growth or to try to better understand themselves and, who have had pasts that aren't very good, obviously, or really fucked up. I mean, either way, that are just trying to that are like, I guess, kind of right now feeling kind of lost and like clueless as to like how the fuck they're going to be able to get to a point where they actually can manifest and achieve what they're, well, trying to manifest, and they're trying to affirm and meditate on and everything, uh, even just a basic first step of like gaining an income or gaining some kind of financial freedom or whatever, or the things that allow us to be able to freely be able to do whatever we want when we want to, be able to live the life that we've always wanted to. um but yeah, so yesterday I went to see uh beloved family cat that, of course, none of our families actually had for, well, since 2013 was the last time I had seen him. March 7th, 2013 specifically. Or not 2017, March 7th, 2013. But yeah, so it'd been 7 years, all over 7 years, 7.5 years since I last seen him. And the dang furball is 30. He's either 29 on the brink of 30, or he's literally 30 now, which is wild in itself. And of all people in my family, because it was me, my sister, my mom that went there. It could have been anybody else, but I wouldn't have thought that, especially with my mom going there, that I would have been the one to be the most emotional from it. But I don't know, like, this will sound weird to like anybody who's not believing in, or even who normally doesn't um doesn't manifest or meditate or do any of the other stuff, law of attraction, positivity, all that stuff, that kind of self-development. But to those that are going through it, especially that are maybe at kind of a junction point, maybe is what I'm at or something, I don't know, a convergence of some kind or something, um, a, epiphany moment, I have no idea. Like, I feel like I'm going through something big just to like be on the brink of something bigger. It's like, I guess you could say, like a preparation thing or something. Or I guess a lot of people would say test in this realm of speech or whatever, but or doing. Also, I don't know why my camera's blurry. This shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but for some reason it's super blurry. I don't know why. It's like super blurry today. It just randomly is like, I'm going to be overexposed and blurry. Let me fix that. I think autofocus is also on, but I guess maybe OBS is being weird. I did just update it. Anyway, getting back to the point. So yeah, it's gonna be kind of weird, but when I was, every time I pet him, it's literally felt so intensely powerful and like internally inside, like literally my heart, my like abdomen and everything, like in the very core middle of it. I kept felt this such a powerful feeling that literally was like it was energetic communication. Like he, without, you know, vocally, so meowing or anything like that, without doing that, or without even using body languages, literally just, he was like, if truly I believe he was communicating with me via contact, via like energetic transfer, via contact transference. And every time I did that, I like got the most powerfully clearest emotional message of like, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for visiting me one last time, because I'm on my way out, and I just really wanted to make sure that you could come and see me before I went, because basically, you're my people. Because I know most people believe that non-human animals just don't have that kind of memory, and they don't really care that much about people. Like, they're not that big of a fixture. It's more the location that's them to them, if they even believe that. Because there's a lot of people that believe that, you know, any non-human animal, especially if they aren't an elephant or a horse or a dolphin or whatever, that they're not intelligent enough to be able, or have complex enough minds to be able to supposedly memorize people or memorize things like that. There's definitely sentience to all beings, but it's just like, you know, it's not just robotic, I guess. Like, so many average people seem to believe. Not that it's a problem, like, you can believe whatever you want, but just, I know it's not true. But, and I even told my mom, because she was wondering if he'd remember us, and she thought she'd have to jog his memory by doing various specific things that she did with him. And I even told her off the bat, I'm like, I know, like, fuck no. Like, yeah, I know for a fact he's going to remember us. He won't even have to hear anything or be jogged. Like, he's going to, as soon as he sees us, he's going to remember us. I don't care how senile he would be if he is. He's going to remember us, like, off the bat. I already know that, you know, he's going to do that. All fur family remembers their people, even if it's been 10 years since they've seen them and they're senile. There's one set of memories that never seems to go away, and it is their people, and we were and are his people. But that's just, the point is that that's what I got from making contact with him, was like, he was talking to me, and that's what he was saying. And also, like, he was trying to communicate the fact that he was kind of worried that we did truly just let him go to every extent. Like, we didn't remember him, we didn't care about him, that we wouldn't visit him again. Because the thing is with him, his entire life, he's lost every fixture in his life he's ever had. Every single set of people he's had have left him behind, or given him away again. Or, well, the first people who had him abandoned him at like 7 or 8 on the side of the road. He was about to be euthanized when my mom actually rescued him, which he was also on the brink of starvation. He was already extremely dehydrated because he apparently didn't understand how to use his cat instincts and survive on his own, like so many domesticated cats actually are able to. Like, once you let them be indoor-outdoor cats, they kick in immediately a lot of times. And they're, you know, they're sufficient, at least, at surviving on their own. Even if they're not great at it, they at least, you know, they're going to survive at least a good, like, 10 years on their own. He was very deficient in that category. He also, once he went up a tree, he didn't know how to get back down, so he always got stuck and had to be rescued by firefighters. We have a proverbial cat stuck in a tree. Dumbasses. Like, there's some cats that are just so fucking stupid. It's like, how are you this dumb? You're a cat. If you know how to go up, you know how to get down. I'm sorry. I guess maybe it's that some of them have acrophobia, and some are just like, for some reason, they don't know how to turn around, or maybe they're literally, again, acrophobia. They're just terrified of turning around because they're like, I don't want to do that because... Then again, we had a cat that was named Kiki Maraca, who wasn't so much dumb as he was arrogant and blind as a dingbat, because he would literally walk off a limb of a tree and go kerplop on the ground because he was apparently very nearsighted. So that's fun. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, and so, like, last night I cried so much, and without even meaning to, I found myself writing like a tribute / like obituary to him, even though I know he, at least as of yesterday, he was still alive. And plus, I'm sure the people who have him would, at least one of them would end up texting my sister, you know, and then obviously my sister would end up letting us know too that he croaked. But so he obviously, I don't believe he's croaked yet, but I sincerely believe that, like, what that energy transference, that thing he was communicating to me, was literally that he was on his way out. Like, he knew for a fact he was going. He was actively, at that point, already out the fucking door. He was just waiting on the curb for his hearse to take him the rest of the way, you know, is what it literally, that was what I got. Via what, you know, vibrationally, energy, whatever. Like, I literally, that's what I was getting from him. And, again, like, my mom is the one that was his person, and he was her cat. Like, you know, they claim each other, absolutely. They, that's, she calls him, that's her perfectly good cat, or her fairy kitty, her Sir Arthur-Lot. Madly in love with that cat, and yet I end up being the one who's like by far the most deeply emotional and just like falling apart. I still kind of, I don't know if it's like I feel like I want to cry, but I just feel, I don't know. I guess it's like I was thinking last night, is that I feel like, and it's good that I had that experience because it helped me, it woke me up to this fact about me that I had no fucking idea. I had no clue this was even a thing to me. But apparently I have a desperateness to cling to that period in my life where we were still living in that house, which the house is entirely different. They literally tore it completely down to the studs and had to rebuild it from scratch. So it's literally a brand new, completely different place. But because of that period, I lived 17 and a half years of my life out in that place. I'm almost 27, which means I lived 60+% of my lifespan so far in that house. And of that, we got him like really early 2000s, I believe. So that would mean that we had him almost the entire time we lived there, because I was 2.5 when we moved to that house. And so it was 96. It would have been summer, late mid, maybe late mid, but like early late summer is when it would have been that we moved into that house. And I just, and so we had him almost the entire time that we lived in that house. And he was next to last cat that I, fur fam, that I ended up loving and cuddling and everything before I left for good that house and them. And of course, I love the fuck out of my fur family, and they were the last ones left, Buggy and Arthur. I didn't have any others left, and I grew up with just constant fur family around of all sorts of different types, more than just two. Most of the time we usually had, like, I'd say an average of 4 or 5, counting the rodents that I had, because I'm a diehard rodent fan. Especially gerbils. I love the fuck out of gerbils. But so we always had, plenty of pets around, and so it's just like, it was weird to leave them, and I felt like I was abandoning them, because it's like I would never want to just pass on a pet or give it back to a shelter or leave it behind. I would want the entire duration of its life to be with me. I would feel so fucking bad. The only way I wouldn't feel that way or want to do that is if it's like a cat, one of the cats we actually ended up having, which was what I like to call a demon cat or demon kitty, because she was literally like a fucking demon. She just had the most arrogant, smug, vicious attitude and personality perpetually. And it was deeply entitled, and it still actually pisses me off whenever I think about it, like how fucking prissy, arrogant, and vicious that cat was, entitled. It just like pisses me off. It still irritates me, and it shouldn't, because again, it's in the past, and she's not even alive, because the person who ended up wanting to take her in couldn't work with her. They had her for like about 2 weeks, and they had to give her to a shelter, and then the shelter tried to work with her as best as they could, and they couldn't. They literally said she's unadoptable because you cannot train that cat. Like, she's just that way. And because she's so bad in every way, they had to put her down. And she was at most maybe 2. Like, she literally did not have a chance at life because she was just that much of a demon cat. But so if it's a case like that, that's the only kind of a situation where I would feel that way. Otherwise, I would always want to make sure they're with me for the rest of my life. Because I love them to death, and I would never want to allow them to feel bad or feel like we didn't care for them anymore, that we gave up on them, that, it's like, oh, fuck you. Like, you know what, you served your purpose, fuck off, like, that just, because, like, even for me, it's like, I've never truly been abandoned, but it's like, I feel like I have for some reason. And it's just like, because of that, I relate so much to these, like, that kind of a thing, especially them, because there's, most of the time for people, these are just animals, right? They're just like, yeah, they're fur family. You might spoil them for a while, but eventually they die. And you're like, well, it happens, and you move on. People don't do that with their family members, as in with humans, but they do that with them. It's like, oh, that's normal. No, it shouldn't be normal. At least in my opinion, it really shouldn't be normal. I find that really hurtful and fucked up. Like, they matter just as all lives. Literally, it doesn't matter if they're human or not. They fucking matter as much as everybody else's. Every other lives matters as much as the next one. And I know that they're sentient. I know they're emotionally complex. I know they have feelings, and I know they have memory. And so it's like, it just feels devastating personally for me whenever that has to happen, because like it's just like literally feels like I'm abandoning them, and like they're gonna feel that way too. And of course you don't know if they are, but it just feels terrible. But at the same time, I really do believe that Arthur understood, that um, especially with visiting him, that he understood what I was trying to communicate to him, that we still really loved him and we'd never forget him, and that we weren't abandoning him. It's just that we had to separate, move on to different chapters of life. Yeah, damn cat's so fucking resilient, everything he's been through, and he's still 30, and it's like never changed. His personality's always been the same. He's always been the same, always acted the same. Like he's literally such a a symbol, or like a legend. I mean, for the fact that even that he's lived to 30, like you tell somebody that your cat's 20, and then I'd say like 65 to 75% of the time, people aren't gonna call bullshit, and they're never gonna believe it. It's like, yeah, cats don't live to 30. So one of the things that I realized with that is the fact that I is that like last night specifically after we got back, I was crying a lot. Is that, yeah, I want something to cling to desperately, to like that, something inside me at least does, to that period of my life, because it's such a huge part of it. And though I have so much that I hate about it, and that like I really really like, I feel like nobody should have to go through, and that I had to go through, obviously, that just was so fucking strenuous and so fucking hell ridden, and even some things that were kind of devastating to me, just like hurtful and angering and infuriating and overwhelming. I did have a lot of good memories back then too, mainly with the fur family. Dad's a piece of shit, technically. At least he was. I don't like, yeah, technically anybody can change, and I don't. The thing is of course, because of how he is, I don't really trust him. I don't know if I ever will. I don't think I will ever fully trust that he can truly change, and that he ever would dare do that, to where he could actually become a properly good person that isn't a fucking sociopathic person that wears masks to get what he wants. But you know, I don't know. Anyway, but because of that, that really fucked me up too. Either way, it's like this whole thing where it's like I still want to cling to that piece of me, but specifically not so much the people and the experiences or the memories, because I always will have those, and I know that, or at least I experience them. So it's like there always be memories, and the people are still alive. So it's like it's not like that matters either. But it's not that. It's literally like the location, the home, the house, the place, the neighborhood, and of course the fur family. And he's literally, to me, the last pillar or the last anchor that I'm desperately clinging to, that's left from that era of my life. Because every other critter has croaked. That house is not even the same house. It literally, the only thing that's the same is the studs and the base frame. That's it. That the entirety of the rest of the house, I guess the foundation technically too, but whatever. But the entirety of the rest of the house, other than that, is brand spanking new. Like as of a few years ago, it's literally completely different. Even the property is totally different. It's just like, so I don't even have that anymore. I have the location, the neighborhood, but I don't have anything else. It just feels so fucking weird. And like I guess I explained last night, is it feels like I'm gonna be, if I lose my anchor, which is Arthur, and I obviously inevitably will, you know, I feel like what's gonna happen is it's because he's gonna rust, the anchor's gonna rust off, right? And because I'm holding on to the anchor, I'm gonna sink with the fucking anchor. And I'd rather sink with the anchor than try to get the rest of the way up onto that boat before it takes off, because at least in my point of view with it, it feels like they just want to leave. Like, they don't want to allow me up on the boat because they don't really give a fuck about me coming with them. They just want to leave. And that's why once the anchor falls off, they just immediately take off because there's nothing holding them back anymore. And it's like, I guess that's kind of part of the reason why I feel like, at least in that moment, like I want to climb the anchor to get into the boat so I can't be left behind. And I'm not just sitting here sinking to my death, you know, out in the middle of the fucking ocean, like literally the most isolated point you can get in the ocean from any land and anybody and any paths of ships and stuff like that. Like, that's where I feel like that it will leave me. And so, yeah, I'd have a choice to either sink and just let go and not give a fuck to try anymore, or I can swim. But being so isolated, it's like, okay, sure, I could swim. And obviously, I just have to pick a random fucking direction and hope to God that I'm going in the right direction, or I'm going a direction that's going to lead me to land, or at least lead me into a major shipping lane, so hopefully it can be seen, like, you know, maybe get ran into by a ship. But, you know, or fishing area, you know, like, that would be huge. That'd be good. That'd be important. But, and then, yeah, you know, then you start from scratch, right? I guess it's just really weird feeling for me, because, like, I think about that. Like, I guess the logical part of my mind's like, but you're still gonna die before you'd find anybody, because you're gonna drown, or you're gonna die of exhaustion and or therefore dehydration. Most likely exhaustion and dehydration simultaneously. They kind of go hand in hand, because you're swimming out in the middle of the most isolated piece of ocean, desperately trying to find something to get you to land, or somebody, or literally find that land. But because you're in the literally most isolated port in the ocean, you really expect you can do that? No, you can't. Logistically, it's impossible. And so it's like one of those stupid things where it's like, you know. But the thing is, I only realized that last night after having that experience. So I recognize how good that is, because it made me realize that. And though I feel a lot better about it today, it still has an impact and an effect on how I'm feeling. But like, with the feeling I was sitting with there in the beginning, and I still have right now, I can't really describe it. The best I can think is not really shock, but you know, like the state of shock where you just kind of stare into space and you're just blank. There's just like no feeling at all. There's nothing there. You're completely numb. It's just like your brain doesn't even exist. Your mind doesn't exist. No, your electrical system doesn't exist. It's just, you're literally empty. You're just kind of just sitting there, unaware of anything. It's just like, that's what it feels like, you know. At the same time, it also has a feeling of, I guess, extreme frustration, some hurt, a little bit of anger, and like, of course, like a deep, deep sadness, like a tugging downward sadness of like, oh fuck, you know, like, I don't know. But that's the closest I can get to describing it. I still don't know if that really accurately describes it. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah. But I took a shower. Yeah, I took a shower. Congratulations, you. No. But no, I swear it's not a Facebook post I'm talking about. But no, I took a shower today, right before I sat down, and at the end of it, I found myself like, because I'm a very imaginative person. My imagination just does what it wants, especially with showers. It's just like, it just takes off. And so I can literally be talking to somebody who's not there, who in my imagination is. And so it's like a projection or like a visualization. So like I'm in a completely different place, a different plane of existence, a different whatever you want to call it, you know? A place where there's, you know, I'm talking like I'm in a different place. I'm not like I'm the same person. I'm in the same point, but it's just like I'm talking to somebody. In this case, I was like making a video, I guess, but it was like a big ranting video where it's just like I wasn't trying not to rant, but it ended in one because it's just super hard for me not to. And I realized like that feeling I was sitting with came from, it had a little bit of that rooted in it, that anchor thing, losing the anchor. But at the same time, I guess having to let go of it, but at the same time, like just the way people are right now, you know, like it's just, that's what it was all about, was a rant. It was like it went from a video talking to people about why they're fucked up in the head and they need desperately need help. In other words, if you're a societal member in the majority, in other words, of people in the world that are out here constantly trying to counsel people, be social justice warriors, Black Lives Matter, whatever all this other shit is, because that stuff pisses me off. So what doesn't really piss me off, it frustrates me so deeply and it hurts me a lot because it's just like they don't realize how much they're devastating their own selves, potential relationships that could provide potential lessons, potential positive benefits. But at the same time, they're destroying, not just destroying all of that for themselves, they're destroying so much for everyone else. Because literally their entire thing that's supposedly progress is based in destructing. They have to destroy everything. You know, it's just like they have to destroy people, they have to destroy the people's lives, they have to destroy their reputations, they have to destroy the willingness for anybody to even acknowledge their existence. They have to destroy everything. They have to destroy you if you don't agree. You have to destroy you if you don't have the same exact moral values as they do, the same code of conduct, the same way you speak, the same will to want to police everybody and how they speak and what they say, when, where they can't say it or whatever, you know. It's just like they want desperately to police everybody. And if you do not follow their exact code of conduct, their exact beliefs, their exact feelings, their exact ideals, their exact morals, their exact information and facts that they accept as that and everything else, then you're just a terrible, hideous piece of shit, and insert every pejorative in the book here. You know, you're white privileged, you're white, you're male, and that's always toxic, you know, because it means you're sexist, you're misogynistic, and of course you're racist. But you're also xenophobic, and you have to throw every fucking pejorative in the bus. Because of course you're that. Because you can't not be if you're born as you are. As a white person, especially if you happen to also be male. Like, what kind of bullshit is that? Like, it's literally reverse racism, which doesn't exist. In other words, it's literally being racist. It just is. Like, in other words, I guess it's like the hypocrisy of it all as well. And like how vicious they are towards people. And they're undyingly vicious. Because they think they're so just, and they're so correct, and they're so morally superior, and high and mighty, and holier than thee. It's like, it's literally like I like to call it, it's a fucking moral crusade. And it just makes me want to tear myself to pieces in just frustration and anger and disgust of just like, why the fuck are you doing that to yourselves? Why the fuck are you doing that to other people? And why the fuck are you so fucking fucked up in the head that you actually think that's progressive? That's gonna add to progress, or that's a good or that's a positive thing, or that it's somehow, yeah, positively impactful and influential, or that it's a good thing. Like, that's the most negative shit out there. It's the most just terrorizing shit out there, you know. And it's just, that stuff bugs me even, like, every few days it seems I find out that bugs me even more than I think it does. Like, I'm also getting better at tolerating it and just like dealing with it and being like, ugh, and just ignoring it, I guess, is really how I deal with it. But at the same time, it's just like every so often it peaks again. It's like, but I didn't like, it's one of those things that just really bugs me so much. And it does hurt me deep inside, because it's like, in that like rant, I was like, why do you so insist on disrespecting yourself and being so incompassionate towards yourself to where you actually are willingly blind and deaf to reality, to where you believe the exact opposite of reality, that's the right way to be, that's somehow going to add to progress, that's somehow positively impactful, that's somehow a good thing, that you're somehow a good person for this. It literally doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't even make emotional sense. Like, it lacks every bit of intelligence emotionally and logistically. But that's just society in a nutshell. You just blindly, deafly follow whatever the heck the crowd says, because we're social creatures, as people like to say as an excuse. It's like, well, yeah, but you literally pick and choose who the fuck you associate with. Like, you don't have to pick and choose to follow everyone else. You can literally handpick your own tribe. Like, whoever you meet, if you mesh with them, if you vibe with them, if it makes you happier and you make them happier and things are fucking great and fantastic and hunky-dory, you know, and like super vibing, but like truly actually vibing, you know, high vibrations and just like super positive, great. Those are the people you need to be around. When it comes down to all this other shit and clout chasing for supposed social justice and shit, it's disturbing. So many of them racial gatekeep, and it's like, literally, if you gatekeep racially or ethnically, culturally, you're literally being racist. You're literally being as prejudiced as possible. When it comes down to ethnic and cultural makeup, technically that's not race, but it's still a prejudice, is the point. And it's like, you're still being a prejudiced prick, which means you're being a hypocrite. And not only that, if you're counseling people and you're trying to literally ruin their entire fucking lives, their reputations, their abilities to form any kind of relationship or have any kind of social ability with anybody, to ever have a job again, that's literally to live, because they're morally wrong, or they don't believe what we do, or they don't vote as we expect them to, or whatever else. Think about that. Think about how fucking intensely negative and dictatorial that is. Like, you're literally trying to control other people and their lives, their choices, their thoughts, their everything, because it's apparently morally just. It's supposedly superior in morality and what? No, it's literally contradictory. It literally itself, the point is literally that in itself is some of the most intensely inflated prejudice you could possibly exude, and delve out. It proves that you yourself are intensely prejudiced against anyone who dares stand opposed or dares have an opposing thought, an opposing idea, an opposing feeling, an opposing opinion that believes a different source of information or a different set of facts. Because apparently that's impossible. Because it's impossible to believe anything but what you do. It's just fucking bullshit. It's like, how fucking intensely hypocritical do people have to be? It's literally like right now I'm making myself physically ill by like, or it's making me physically ill, really is what it is, by like how fucking intensely hypocritical people are, and like how egregiously prejudiced and arrogant it is to be that way. And they have the audacity to fool themselves and try to fool everyone else around them into believing that somehow that's progressive, that somehow that's logical, that somehow that's positively impactful, when it couldn't be further from the reality, from the truth. Because the God's honest reality and truth of life, in fact of life, is with that, it's the complete polar opposite. It couldn't be more opposed to that in reality than you really believe it is. Or if you're not one of those, then they believe it is. It's so intensely frustrating. And it's like, and of course, here's the worst part, is that they have so much power just because they won't shut the fuck up. And they know that's why they have that power. That's why they don't want to shut up and encourage everybody else to join them and just screaming bloody murder and constantly throwing pejoratives and just and demanding they get everything they demand. And if they don't, insert all the pejoratives here and try to counsel the company or the person, because apparently that must mean they're evil. And of course, they're super prejudiced, which itself is literally proves the prejudice and lack of intellect these people have. It's just like, it literally proves they cannot think for themselves, or at least they refuse to think for themselves. They don't know any better, it seems like. Some of them I know do know better. They just want to be with the rest of everybody. And it's just the most devastating thing. It actually literally is kind of hurtful and really sad because of how much they don't realize, how fucking delusional these people are, that they're hurting their own fucking selves. More than they're hurting anything, they're really hurting themselves. Especially in the long run. They're really hurting themselves. If you're one of those people and you dare think you deserve respect, you do not. You're like the only set of people that do not deserve respect. And in fact, you will not garner respect, except from likewise, like-minded people, of course, because they feel and think the same way as you do. They're literally a fucking Truman Show house, a cookie cutter clone, because they also are part of the crowd. It's fucking bullshit. It's like, why can't you have more self-compassion and self-respect to think for your own fucking self, rather than following with everybody else, rather than allowing yourself to be so fucking intimidated by the prospect that they could counsel you and ruin your entire life and ability to ever have a life again, when in reality you can fucking create your own life. And yeah, of course, there can probably be people who are like, well, but Danny, you don't have a life. Yeah, I don't yet, but I'm working on creating it. You know, like, it takes fucking time. And when you have you're able to be so self-aware that you recognize your own hiccups, you recognize your own hitches, you recognize your own walls, you recognize your own problems, your own inhibitions, and you're dedicated to working on that before you try to go and do whatever it is that you think somebody should do, then you're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. But it's gonna take a lot of fucking time. You know? Like, so yeah, I get why people would say that, because it's true. I don't, in what people consider a life, I don't really have one yet. You know, I'm trying to build that myself, and that's part of the reason why I want to film this. Like, there's part of this, like, obviously I always want to do some of this for, like, when these kind of videos, I want to do them for myself too. So especially I can look back on them and I can be like, wow, look at this fucking, like an archive, you know, be like, wow, look at the progress that made sense at that point. I'd be super fucking proud of myself, which you should be, and that's not arrogant. That's a good thing. Because then, you know, and congratulate yourself and give yourself a hug or whatever, because it's like, this is fucking awesome. And then show yourself that gratitude of like, you had such resilience because you just kept pushing forward. Even when it seemed like it was impossible to make that progress, you still trusted that you would. And you kept moving forward anyway. Even if it was against the current, you still moved forward. Even when it was a torrent of a flood, you still did it. Even when the dam broke, you still kept pushing against the currents successfully. You know, so that's, of course, one of the main reasons why I do these videos, which I rarely ever do. But I kind of want to do some of these more often because of the fact that there's a part of me that's kind of had an urge and always had a temptation to want to start making some videos that are based around my journey, whether you want to call it spiritually or universally or energetically, or do it long form, which is with detail, which is to say that, you know, my journey through self progress and growth and embracing, you know, spirituality, or not, well, I guess spirituality obviously is a word because subconsciously that just popped out, but you know, and subconsciously, of course, definitely. But you know, with journey with manifestation, meditation, affirmation, law of attraction, power, positivity, all that, you know, I've just had a temptation to do that because it's just like, there's a part of me that knows that there's a lot of other people out there that are going through the same shit, whether it's right now or in the future, or they had gone through it. And so it's like a way where if they had gone through it before, then they're ahead of me, right? And so that means that they can technically help me or anybody else who watches this video or any of the other videos I do on it, right? Because they can leave a comment of encouragement and or like ideas for how you can better connect with your manifestations or better achieve them, or affirmations for that point where you're in, or ways you can gain a more positive energy and better perspective to where you literally will not be as, at least as, if not at all, bugged by these kind of things, like other people and the way they're treating others and stuff like that, like I've just described. Whatever it is, the ability to let go of things like an anchor in your past, which probably is holding you back. Again, something I've talked about here today. It's just one of those things where it's like, I just feel like it's also therefore very important to do that. But then at the same time, you have people that are on the same page, or they're at least around or at the same kind of point and juncture in their journey. And so it's like, at this point, these videos also might help give them a little extra perspective of like, oh, hey, I'm not alone. Fuck, like, this is cool, but also there's probably some pessimism, right? So it's like, but fuck you, like, fuck this. At least if you're me, I have optimism, realism, and pessimism always bundled together at the same time. Also, I'm an honorary dick sometimes, especially when I feel better, and I'm obviously feeling better, which is good because it means that I'm doing the right thing, because I'm actually being self-expressive. I'm putting it out there, and I know I'm putting it out there for other people because I know it will help people, and I already feel my own fucking energy and vibration going back up into the positive again, rather from like a negative neutral state. So this has really helped me a lot. But yeah, it's like that. That's great too. And then of course you have the idea of people that are behind that will eventually get to this point. And so they have like an extra set of perspective of like what they might be able to expect. Or at least, even if they turns out they're something completely different, hey, guess what? That's great too, because then at that point, they still have perspective and a better understanding of what some other people had to go through. And then it might just add to their own perspective of the sense of this is for themselves and their own journey of like, this is really cool, the differences, because, like here, it was easier for me with this, and this, and that really helped me. But on their journey, thank God I didn't have to go through this, and this, because that would have made it way harder. And so you also build a mutual respect for that person, but also in their journey, but also your own, because that gratitude, and that other stuff, that awareness of like, this is really cool, because everybody has their own unique path and journey in life, obviously. So yeah, it's funny because recently I still haven't seen Forrest Gump, which is wild because my dad we owned that movie growing up, and my dad loved watching it. And for some reason, every freaking time my dad, mom, and my sister started to watch it, I either wouldn't be interested, I'd be somewhere else doing something else, probably in my room, like playing with cars on my homemade on particle board, like with marker or with paint, worlds for my cars, but or talking to my rodents or whatever else. But like, I think actually more often I was in bed, which is interesting because it's like my dad, that was one of his, at least at the time, it was one of his all-time favorite movies. I don't know about now, probably still. But from everything I'm hearing about it, it's like, well, apparently one, I would relate to it. Two, I would really enjoy it. And three, and this is something I heard really recently. In fact, it was last night. I heard somebody say that they're Forrest Gumping through life. And what they were describing before that, to that point, I was like, I think it was last night. Or maybe it was early in the day, actually. But it's like, huh, that's really interesting. Because I realized the way you described that in Forrest Gump Through Life, I was like, that's basically what I'm doing then. Which is funny because there's like so many other people that are like, yeah, but that means you're a mooch or whatever, you're a horrible person because you're not a part of the cog in the system, you're not working your ass off till the day you die like everyone else. How dare you? It's like, well, listen, everybody has their own unique path and journey in life, and I'm going with my own natural flow, and again, dealing with my own personal issues, like, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what to do, obviously, and like somebody, like I say, Gary Vee says, maybe that was who said that, I don't know. Anyway, like Gary Vee said, and has said so many times, and he's so right, is the fact that, it people fail to realize how much fucking time they have in life. Like, when you're 30 or even 40 and you're just really properly getting started on your dream or whatever else it is, or even just life in general, your first job, it's actually not a bad thing. That's a fucking fantastic thing, because you're probably thinking, I'm too old for this. Like, I don't have enough time. You have a fuckload of time. It's all about fucking perspective. You don't realize how much fucking time you have. It's like people don't realize. People are like, oh, you died at 80? Life's so short. You died at 90? Life's so short. 100? Life's so short. Remember the days in like the 15, 14, 1600s where people, their average lifespan for a human being was about 50? You were lucky if you lived 60 plus? Between 50 and 60. You were lucky if you lived 60 plus. Really, you were. Because that's the normal, natural, organic human lifespan, is about roughly 50 to 60 years. Not 80 to 100 like it is now. That's because of human arrogance that decided that was too short. And so we're like, okay, we need to extend our lives. Oh, now it's 80, 90. And of course, guess what happened? This is another pet peeve of mine. There's a lot of pet peeves I have, and they're almost exclusively with human beings, with humanity. Like, at least, obviously for more spiritual people, whatever out there, I mean in the material sense. So like the material being of human beings. That's what I mean by that, humans. This is the material form. Obviously, not your spiritual, energetic form, because that's not even human to me. That's completely and entirely different. But you have your material, energetic form, which is the human, the flesh and bone, and idiot brain, which relies on familiarity, which makes us incredibly fucking stupid and incapable of quantification of pretty much anything. Which, of course, our arrogance tells us we're the smartest things on earth. Right. Totally. But anyway, yeah, you can tell I don't fucking believe that for a second. I never have, I never will. I actually believe the opposite. I believe we're one of the dumbest, if not the dumbest creature on the face of the earth that ever has existed. But anyway, completely different story. Point is, the human arrogance made us live to 80, 90. And people, of course, we got to that point, and now, of course, guess what happened? We're like, well, that's still too short. We need to live longer. I sincerely believe if we can somehow achieve to make lifespans average between 100 and 120, and then 150 and 200 years, the entirety of human beings will still keep collectively believing sincerely that somehow that's too short, while they're still trying to find ways to preserve their bodies so they can continue their lives later after they die of natural causes or old age, in other words. Which is so fucking arrogant. It's like, the only creature that we know of that naturally and organically consistently can live well beyond 100 years is a fucking tortoise. Tortoises can live anywhere between 100 and 250 years naturally. And they're lucky if they live beyond 200 years. That's a tortoise. Human beings naturally between 50 and 60, which would at the time put us middle of the pack out of all the rest of, the non-human animals we think of. We were dead center of the pack at that point. Now we're up at the top of the pack in lifespan, and we still say it's too short. And my point for mentioning that, after mentioning that people don't realize how much fucking time they have in life, is the fact that you don't realize how much fucking time you have in your life, because now instead of living 50 or 60, which was already a half a fucking century or more, which if you think about it, even 20 years, you've lived through a fuckload of shit that went down. Tons of history. So if you die at 20, you lived a fucking long ass life. You lived a good life. You lived through a lot of shit. A lot of changes. And of course, every decade you add, the more massive amount of changes you add to your life, the more experiences you add, the more you experience these differences happening in humanity and society and everything else in the world. Like, you're literally living history. Even at 10, you technically are, but especially 20 and beyond, you're living fucking history book. People take that for granted endlessly. They don't realize that their lifespan, even at 20, just only being 20-year-olds, is so fucking long. Like, that's a long time. That's 2 fucking decades. You go 5 more years, that's a quarter of an entire century. You know what happens in a whole fucking century, let alone a half a century? And now people are living between 80 and 100 years old on average. Really? That's too short? What the fuck? You have people that are still alive today that were born before World War II started. They're 100 plus. They're lucky bastards to be living that long themselves. And yet, especially the shit they put themselves through. And yet, at the same fucking time, people are still willing when they die to say, too short. It's not too... That's fucking long as shit. You lived over a fucking entire century. You experienced an entire century's worth of fucking history. Regression and progression. Changes. Like, you lived through so fucking much. You're a literal fucking autobiography of history. A living fucking history book. And you really have the audacity to think that's too short? That's arrogance in a nutshell. That's human, that typical organic, natural, born into material human beings, human arrogance. Nothing is ever going to be enough to the material human being. It never will be. It never has throughout history. Clearly it never will, especially when it comes down to lifespan. No lifespan will ever be enough unless to mortality. And even then, I would not be surprised if somehow people became immortal. They figured out how to do that for themselves and each other. And most people became immortal. They would still find something to think that it wasn't good enough. And is that a part of material human nature? Yes. Do I agree that it should be? Fuck no. I think that's actually a big inhibition and actually a literal source of our own fucking guaranteed self-demise in terms of an extinction as a species. Like, it's already a fact. Human beings are going to make themselves go extinct. We already are deep in the progress of that. Like, we're going to die. We're going to go away. There's not going to be anything we're going to be able to do about it because we're doing everything we're doing to supposedly save the earth and ourselves, and everything we're not doing to save the earth and ourselves is all exactly what's going to cause ourselves to die off and go completely extinct permanently, which the entire universe and world will benefit endlessly from because we are a fucking parasite. We're a literal multi-level parasite. I can't exactly remember what the type of parasite is. A parasite that lives off of other parasites, and a parasite that also has other parasites living on it and in it. But we're literally those 2 types of parasites. We're the normal parasite and then that kind of parasite simultaneously. The earth and nature is our host. And any other planet we dare try to exploit, well, that's exactly it. We're going to exploit it to try to survive. We're not going to try to live with it. We're going to make sure we live as aggressively off of it and exploitatively as possible off of it. Because that's human nature. We're parasites. What are you going to do? It's just like, yeah. But anyway, I'm about to be 27. For a lot of people, that's a long time. Until, of course, I die at 28. And people will be like, he was so short. He was so young. And I was like, no, I really wasn't that. I was super young, and I wasn't young at all. Like, at same time. Because in terms of total length of time, I was intensely young. But at the same time, lifespan-wise, and the amount of shit I've experienced, the history I've seen, the changes I've lived through at that point, if I die at 28, is a fucking load. It's a big-ass fuckload. Already I was a living history book. Like, that's a fact. And so it's like, that's what also makes me at the same time as being ultra fucking young. If I died at 28, would also mean that I was super fucking old. Or at least not super fucking old, but, you know, very well-lived, I guess you could say. So, and people don't seem to recognize and realize this fact of life and this fact of reality. Like, everybody has so much fucking time. They never know how much time exactly you're gonna have, but that shouldn't be something you worry about, think about, because it doesn't really concern you. Like you need to be focusing on the present moment exclusively, and that's a big lesson that I'm trying to get myself, more my mind to learn and accept. Because of course, the entire thing with this whole thing is you're trying to make sure that you're reprogramming your mind from society and influence and all the normal human things and beliefs and wiring. You're trying to dewire that and deprogram all that, so you have a blank slate, so then you can rewire it to work in to your highest favor and your highest benefit. That's the entire point. So you can achieve everything you've ever dreamt of and endlessly more, because technically everything is infinite. There's no end to anything, especially when it comes down to energy and stuff like that. It's never created or destroyed, you know. So it just is. I mean, there's just so much awesomeness to that. And I guess before I end this, I want to point out that I myself was always the hardest core cynic against this shit my entire life. Well, actually, maybe not I guess more from my mid-teen years onward, which that was the time that I got stuck with my dad at his worst by myself. So it made sense, I guess, that like I grew so much more cynical and pessimistic and just like fuck everything, angry type of fuck everything rather than positive type of fuck everything, that I did, including for that. But like in general, I also think it was like a natural development, like because I didn't know what to believe and I didn't want to give a fuck about what to believe. I still don't, but it's like one of those things where I was so hardcore cynical against it. I'm like, yeah, fucking right. That's like schizophrenic right there if you believe in that. And yet, it turns out it wasn't actually even last year, like I keep thinking. It was the year before. It was 2018. My mom showed me a Jake Ducey video, and that's where it all began. It's like, you know what? I literally thought to myself afterward for like the next hour, I'm like, you know what? Every fucking thing I've tried in my life has gotten me literally nowhere. It's never properly changed my perspective or how I think about things. I'm still just as big of a pessimistic piece of shit. You know, no progress is being made. I'm just sitting here being angry at the world and everything and myself and anybody who tries to quote unquote help me by trying to tell me I need to be a normal person and do everything that normal, average, everyday people do, which I, of course, am a natural, extremely rebellious person, and extremely defiant. So it's like whenever somebody expects me to do something, I tend to do the opposite because of the fact that I'm like, fuck you. Because that's just naturally what I am. And I know to my very core, that's literally the real true me, the higher self. That's a big piece of a chunk of that, a big trait of it, you know. I guess a lone wolf a lot of times. Like I'm more than okay with being a loner. And just being like, you know what? If everybody says that that's the wrong and I'm the only one who believes it's right, great. I'll stand alone in that. In fact, even better, because then I know I'm pissing off other people and that makes me kind of happy. Because it's like, I'm not here to fucking please you. I'm not even here to please myself. I'm me. I'm sorry if that pisses you off. I'm sorry if sticking to my guns pisses you off, but that's okay with me. And that it does. It makes me very happy. I guess it's like it's sort of pride in myself, which is good because you want to be confident and have, you know, healthy sense of pride in yourself and your traits because that's who you are, right? At least I should say that's a very small, tiny little microscopic or nanoscopic portion of who you are, technically, but, you know, heard nothing. But anyway, yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I just naturally am a defiant person. Like I'm a loner in the sense that I work for myself. I make sure that I have my own back always, and that I trust myself as much as possible in every instance, you know, and believe in myself, and that I'm the one who's standing up for myself. So it's like if I want to do this, then I'm gonna do it. I don't give a fuck if you don't want me to. I'm doing it anyway because that's what I want to do. I'm doing this for me, not for you. This for me, not somebody's fucking rules or laws, you know, like I'm doing it, you know. I mean, there's certain things that my mom would probably, and my family would probably be like, don't get involved with that. It's like, yeah, it's stupid, but I'm gonna do it. Like if I wanted to do it, and this is just as an example, if I wanted to do it, they'd absolutely be against it and be like, no, don't do that. You're being stupid. And it's like, I know I am. I know I'm taking a really dumb risk. It's like not even a calculated risk, because you calculate it, you don't have to, because you already know how dumb people are that do this. I'm gonna do it. Say Red Bull Extreme Sport, tight roping across the fucking Grand Canyon with nothing under you, or no braces. Yeah, that's a smart fucking idea. Actually, no, that's the dumbest fucking thing. Like one of the dumbest things you can do. Like you're asking to kill yourself at that point. Like it's just so stupid. Just fucking adrenaline junkies. But anyway, again, it's it's if you like that shit, that's your thing. Good for you. Like I'm glad if it makes you happy, then fantastic. Go ahead and keep doing it, because that's a good thing. But just me personally, I fucking hate that shit because it's fucking dumb as hell. Like you're trying to commit suicide at that point. I'm sorry, you are. You're just too addicted to your adrenaline boosts, and you're a junkie. But yeah. Anyway, but that's as an example. If I decided to say I was going to do that, I guarantee you my entire family would be like, you're a fucking idiot. Don't fucking do it. I'm like, yes, it's not worth it. I would be like, I'm doing it. You know why? Because I'm doing it for myself, because I want to. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm not even doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the fucking Red Bull brand. I'm not doing it for the people who want to see it, who are going to be entertained by it. I'm doing it literally for me, because I want to. So nobody's going to stop me. And that's the kind of defiant person I am as well. It's like, I know that's where my defiance comes from. It can be a defense mechanism, but for the most part, it's like, no, I'm going to be me. I'm going to serve myself before anybody else. And of course, to an average person, that sounds deeply arrogant, but it's not. It's like, I need to take care of myself before I can truly be able to properly care for anybody else in the first place. Anyway, that's just how it works. You gotta take care of yourself and love your true self and everything, and support yourself and find yourself and give yourself a foundation, structure to work with. That you've really built from scratch for yourself, that will never give out on you, before you can properly and truly expect and know you can truly take care of other people. You can't do that if you're not taking care of yourself like that first, and found that you make that foundation and everything. And I myself am far from that anyway. But even if I got to that point, there's still an imperative nature of putting yourself first before other people. And it's not that you're uncaring, because you definitely care a fuck about other people. It's just any living thing, It's just that you understand and recognize the fact of reality and the truth of life, that you got to take care of yourself first and foremost. That's really fucking important. And people demand that's arrogant, and it's not. It's just called self-care, like. There's obviously there's a very fine line. It's almost invisible. It's so fucking fine, in the proverbial sand, between that kind of self-care and all that stuff, and serving yourself in a positive way, and arrogance, just being an arrogant, self-righteous prick. Like there's such a nearly invisibly fine line between those two, that I guarantee you any other human being has crossed multiple times in their life already, and probably will accidentally end up crossing without realizing it here and there. It just is naturally going to occur as you're trying to define your own fucking boundaries, and trying to find, therefore, where your boundary with that is, let alone where other people's are. It's almost like it seems to move a lot, but in reality, you're the one who's moving around, trying to navigate and trying to figure out, where each of these things are, where your comfort zone is, where you need to push yourself out of it, all this other stuff, so you can understand wherever all the boundaries are that you have for yourself and that life has, and it's like, that's why people would naturally cross that line pretty consistently throughout their life, and it's almost always without realizing it. It's very accidental. And another thing is, I guess I'll add to that, even though it's not what I'm meant to do, is ramble on like this again for the conclusion. But it's one of those things where, at that point, it's also something where you have to help yourself, because the only person that can help you is yourself. Truly. You cannot, like, you can waste your entire life away trying to get people help that you care so deeply about. You can try and help them as much as you want. You'll never make progress and you'll never be helped unless they want it and they are truly meaningful and dedicated and believing and knowing that they need that help and that they want it. At that point, then your help will be able to help them. But it will never help anybody if they don't want to help, want the help first, or want to help themselves first, or recognize they need that help as well. So it's another good thing to recognize when you're trying to help others, or more importantly yourself, is that you need to recognize that you need to help. You need help yourself, and at the same time, you're the only one who can truly help yourself properly. You know, they can help you help yourself. And that's what really means that they're getting help from others, but they aren't really helping you in terms of getting you help. They're helping you help yourself, because you can only help yourself, if that makes sense to people. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that sounds convoluted, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. This has been my natural flow of thought and expression, and I just kind of wandering my own mind and my emotions, and yeah. Hopefully this video, which is so different than anything else I've ever posted on this channel, will actually be able to help you guys, those of you out there that are, I don't know, seeking perspective on these kind of journeys and trying to understand if it's normal or okay to go through what would normally be considered negative phases and stuff, or phases where, yeah, you basically your energy sinks negatively, because it really is important that you find things you can relate to and find things that can help you build more understanding, and, you know, find out if something is, you know, you have something in common with somebody else, you know, that's going through the same journey. Maybe you're at the same point, maybe again before it, maybe you're after it, you know. Either way, I hope this is able to help people. And heck, if somebody sees this that is further along, I would love, and that has been here before and understands it, I would love to be able to have you share some advice and some perspective, some information or whatever, some aid down in the comments below, because that would be fucking phenomenal, for not just for me, but for anybody else that's going to go through this at some point in the future or is going through it. And I think it would even be valuable to others who are further along in the process of self-growth and progress.